With regard to the drug screen today, he advises me that he will not pass the drug screen. Said he was going to be positive for marijuana and meth.
This is absolutely ridiculous. Now you come in here telling me I can't go to jail, Judge, because, I'm going to lose my job and I value my job. I mean, how bad of a problem do you have when you know you're being watched? You're coming in to get sentenced for violating your probation, for using meth, and you come in here dirty for meth. That's not my problem. That's your problem. In regard to the matter, then, did you have a chance to go over the resentencing recommendations with Mr. Capel?
I did, Your Honor. There's nothing of a factual nature that we need to address in there. I did talk to Mr. Capel about his payments. He's indicated that he was planning on paying with his taxes. I think he has some financial difficulties due to being in and out of work. So I think he's trying to catch up on some back bills and putting the court on the back burner, so to speak. Advised him that's not a good idea. Even paying $5 a week would make an impression on the court. So I think he'll try and do better going forward. With regard to the drug screen today, he advises me that he will not pass the drug screen. And
in what respects are we not going to pass?
Said he was going to be positive for marijuana and meth.
Well, I think that's a real good reason, Mr. Capel, to start looking at why you can't make any probation cost payments. You're spending it all on meth. Anyway, go ahead, Ms. Schaub. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Your Honor, he was honest with me that he would not pass. I discussed with him where he got it, and he apparently said it was a gift. But obviously, given his circumstances, that was not a wise choice. But he does have a full-time job. If he goes to jail for 15 days, I don't know if that job will be available when he gets out of jail. So I don't know what the court wants to do with Mr. Capel. I don't know how. I had notes prior to his pleading to this that he had been testing clean and doing what he was supposed to do, but apparently he's gotten a little bit off track. I'm hoping the court will give him one more break and not put him in jail today.
Thank you. Mr. Capel, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I work at hometown right now. We're reduced to winter hours.
What?
We're reduced hours right now because it's the slow season. So I'm only getting like 32-ish a week. So it's like $500 a paycheck, roughly, give or take, after taxes. But I should have enough today for, if not half, majority of the court costs that I owe because of 4 seasons. I clocked enough hours, I think. I'm just waiting on the W-2 SE. I worked there for 2 days.
In a quiet corner of Dickinson District Court, the day began like any other, the courtroom clock ticking steadily against the wooden walls as light filtered through the tall windows behind the bench. Judge Lacoste sat poised in her seat, glasses perched at the edge of her nose, eyes sharp yet calm as she scanned through a stack of case files. The virtual courtroom had already begun, a window on her screen showing the digital connection to the small courtroom across town where the defendant stood nervously beside his attorney. The faint hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of shuffling papers filled the space, but there was a tension in the air that no one could yet name. The defendant, a man with an unsteady voice and restless eyes, had been called to appear for a hearing involving a violation of court orders, a matter that, at first glance, seemed routine, until words began to twist into something far from ordinary. Judge Lacoste adjusted her red glasses and leaned forward, her tone calm but measured, as she began to question him about the inconsistencies in his earlier statements. Mr. Daniels, she said firmly, the information you've provided in your affidavit doesn't match the records we have on file. Can you explain that? Her voice carried the weight of both authority and restrained patience, the kind that comes from years on the bench dealing with stories that crumble under truth's pressure. The defendant swallowed hard, glancing at his attorney, then back at the camera. Your Honor, I didn't mean to lie, he stammered, it must have been a misunderstanding. But the judge's expression didn't soften. She had heard it all before. Her pen tapped lightly against the desk, a metronome of composure masking the frustration beginning to surface. The prosecutor, standing just out of frame, shuffled a few documents and cleared her throat. Your Honor, she interjected, we have verified the report with the county clerk's office. The defendant clearly stated under oath that he was not aware of the pending warrant, yet surveillance and timestamped records show he was present at the location in question just 2 days before filing this affidavit. Silence followed, thick, heavy, the kind that settles like dust after an explosion. Judge Lacoste's eyes narrowed slightly, scanning the document on her screen, the subtle movements of her lips betraying a mounting irritation. Mr. Daniels, she said finally, you are under oath. Do you understand what perjury means? The man nodded quickly, voice trembling, yes, Your Honor. Then why, she continued, each word landing like a gavel strike, would you stand before this court, in a hearing broadcast on record, and deliberately misrepresent the truth? The man hesitated again, searching for a way out of the tightening web. I didn't think it was important, he whispered, barely audible. Judge Lacoste leaned back in her chair, letting out a controlled sigh, and for a moment, the courtroom felt suspended between calm and chaos. She adjusted her glasses again, looking toward the screen where the court clerk sat waiting. Clerk, please read back the defendant's sworn statement from last session. The clerk's voice echoed in the chamber, steady and factual, recounting every word the defendant had spoken just a week earlier, words that now betrayed him. As the transcript ended, the defendant lowered his head, his hands gripping the table before him. The judge's voice grew colder now, the patience evaporating. You lied to this court, Mr. Daniels. You lied directly to me. Her tone carried not just authority but a deep sense of personal affront, as though the integrity of the institution itself had been tested. This is not a place for manipulation or deceit. When you speak under oath, you are bound by the truth, not by convenience. She paused, the weight of her words hanging in the air. I have tolerated enough. At that moment, something shifted. The quiet courtroom energy transformed into something electric, pulsing with the sudden realization that this hearing would not end like the others. The judge signaled toward the bailiff, her expression hardening into something unyielding. Bailiff, she said, her voice low but firm, take the defendant into custody immediately. The sound of chairs scraping echoed through the room as the bailiff stepped forward. The defendant's eyes widened, shock and disbelief flooding his face. Your Honor, please, he exclaimed, his voice cracking. I didn't mean to. I swear. But Judge Lacoste didn't flinch. She had seen enough, too many excuses, too many attempts to twist the truth into something tolerable. You swore once already, she replied sharply. And you broke that oath. This court will not be made a fool of. As the bailiff approached, placing a steady hand on the defendant's shoulder, the courtroom seemed to shrink, the air growing tighter, heavier. The defendant turned toward his lawyer, desperate. Do something, he pleaded. The attorney could only shake her head solemnly, whispering, there's nothing I can do now. The metallic click of handcuffs broke the silence like a thunderclap. Every eye in the courtroom fixed on the defendant as he was led away, his expression a mixture of panic, regret, and disbelief. Judge Lacoste sat motionless for a moment, her gaze distant but steady, as if weighing the invisible burden of justice itself. Then she looked down at her notes, drew a line across the page, and spoke once more. Let this serve as a reminder, she said, her voice resonating through the chamber, that truth is not optional in this court. It is the foundation of every judgment rendered here. Anyone who attempts to deceive this institution will face the full consequences of their actions. She paused again, her pen tapping the desk once more before she looked up. Court is adjourned. The gavel struck wood with a sharp finality, echoing through both physical and digital space, marking the end of what would soon become one of the most talked about moments in that courthouse's recent history. The video of the hearing, captured on the official Zoom feed, would later circulate online, viewed by thousands, discussed by millions, dissected by legal analysts and casual viewers alike. Some would praise Judge Lacoste for her unwavering stance on integrity and order, calling her decision a bold reaffirmation of judicial authority. Others would debate whether her reaction was too harsh, arguing that the defendant's panic had been punishment enough. But regardless of opinion, one thing was clear: this was no ordinary day in court. The defendant's name would fade from public memory in time, but the lesson would remain etched in every viewer's mind. The law is not a place for games, and truth, once broken, carries a price. The commentary channels would replay the moment over and over. The flicker of disbelief in the judge's eyes, the quiet tension before the order, the sudden, irreversible shift from hearing to arrest. Each replay added layers of meaning, transforming a simple Zoom hearing into a parable of justice in the digital age. Behind the scenes, the courthouse returned to its daily rhythm. The clerks filed new cases, the attorneys prepared their next arguments, and Judge Lacoste continued her docket, calm and composed as ever, as though the earlier storm had never occurred. Yet those who had witnessed the moment knew something deeper had happened, something that went beyond law and order. It was a reminder that even in a world of screens and remote hearings, where faces flicker through Wi-Fi connections and voices echo through microphones, the principles of truth and accountability remain as real and as fierce as ever. In that small courtroom, connected by technology but bound by justice, one lie had sparked a reckoning, a reminder that the eyes of the court never truly close, and that respect for truth is not a courtesy to the system but its very heartbeat. For Judge Lacoste, the day ended quietly. She closed her files, removed her glasses, and gazed out the window at the fading afternoon light. Beyond the walls of her courtroom, life continued, ordinary and indifferent. But within her chambers, the echoes of that confrontation lingered, a whisper of what it means to guard the fragile boundary between justice and deceit. It wasn't anger that had driven her to act, nor pride, but conviction, the kind that anchors every good judge in an ocean of human frailty. And though the video would go viral, headlines sensationalized, and comments filled with debate, she knew that none of that truly mattered. What mattered was the record, the truth inscribed in that moment, the clarity of law prevailing over chaos. And so, as she gathered her robe and prepared to leave for the evening, there was no regret in her stride, only the quiet certainty that she had done what justice demanded. Outside, the sky deepened into twilight, and the courthouse lights flickered on, illuminating the seal above her courtroom door, a symbol of the enduring promise that the law, though sometimes slow, though often challenged, still stands firm against the weight of dishonesty. That was the real story behind the headline, behind the viral clip, behind the flood of comments and reactions, the story of a judge who refused to let the truth be buried beneath convenience, a defendant who learned too late that lies have consequences, and a courtroom that reminded the world, once again, that justice, though human in its flaws, remains divine in its purpose.